Every single day, my dad demanded the same lunch, 2 sandwiches perfectly made. He controlled everything in our house, every word, every dollar, every emotion. What he didn't know, for years I was secretly turning his daily lunch into something he would have absolutely lost his mind over if he ever noticed. If you've ever dealt with someone who made your life miserable and wished you could get even in the smallest way, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you love stories where justice isn't loud but perfectly petty. And trust me, this one, it's subtle but unforgettable. Growing up, my house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a pressure cooker. You know that feeling when you're constantly walking on eggshells? Like every step you take, every word you say could set someone off? That was my normal. My dad wasn't physically violent, but in some ways that almost made it worse because there were no bruises, nothing you could point to and say, "See, this is wrong." Instead, it was constant psychological warfare. Sarcastic remarks that cut too deep, explosive arguments over nothing, silent treatments that lasted days, money being controlled like a weapon. And the worst part? He refused to admit anything was wrong. Looking back now, as an adult, I can see it clearer. He was deeply mentally unwell. He needed help, real help, but he refused it. But back then, I was just a teenager. Angry, confused, exhausted, and most of all, powerless. One of the weirdest things about living in that house was how structured his expectations were, especially when it came to his routine. Every single morning, without fail, his lunch had to be prepared. Not by him, of course, by my mom. My mom worked a full-time job. She'd wake up early, get all of us kids ready for school, juggle everything, and still, somehow, she was expected to pack his lunch perfectly. Because if she didn't, he'd throw a tantrum. And I don't mean mild annoyance. I mean full-on sulking, complaining, passive-aggressive comments that poisoned the entire day. So yeah, the lunch mattered. His meal was always the same. 2 bologna and cheese sandwiches, mayo, mustard, a couple of snack cakes, crackers, and a soda. Simple, predictable, almost robotic. And for a while, it was just another thing we all silently endured. Until one night, something in me snapped. It wasn't a big moment, no dramatic argument, no breaking point speech. Just one of those quiet, heavy nights where everything you'd been holding in finally starts to leak out. I remember standing in the kitchen, making his lunch instead of my mom, trying to give her a break. The house was quiet, too quiet. And as I spread the mustard across the bread, I just paused. My hand hovered for a second, and this thought crossed my mind. He controls everything, but not this. So I did something completely stupid, petty, juvenile, and honestly kind of hilarious. I took the mustard and I drew a dick on his sandwich. I stared at it for a second, half expecting lightning to strike, half expecting him to walk in and catch me. But nothing happened. So I closed the sandwich, packed the lunch, put it exactly where it always went, and went to bed. The next day, nothing. No yelling, no comments, no suspicion. He ate it, completely unaware. And that's when something clicked. This tiny, ridiculous act gave me a feeling I hadn't felt in a long time. Control. Not over my life, not over the situation, but over something. And when you feel powerless for long enough, even the smallest bit of control feels like oxygen. So I did it again. The next time I made his lunch, another mustard drawing. Then again, and again, and again. It became a ritual. If I was the one making his sandwiches, you could bet 100% certainty that somewhere in that bread, hidden between layers of bologna and cheese, was a perfectly crafted mustard masterpiece. Every single time. And the funny thing is, I got creative with it. Different styles, different angles, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle. It turned into this weird, silent rebellion. because on the outside, everything looked normal. He still got his lunch, still went to work, still believed he controlled everything. But underneath, there was this tiny, invisible act of defiance happening every day, and he had absolutely no idea. Years went by like that. The tension in the house never really disappeared, but I got older, stronger. Eventually, I moved out, built my own life, got distance. And with distance came clarity. About a year ago, I was sitting with my mom, just talking, reminiscing about the past. And somehow, the topic of my dad came up. We laughed about some things, got quiet about others. And then I thought, should I tell her? So I did. I told her everything. About the sandwiches, about the mustard, about the years of hidden artwork. I expected shock, maybe a lecture, at the very least confusion. Instead, she burst out laughing. Not a polite chuckle, I mean full-on, can't-breathe, tears in her eyes laughter. And when she finally caught her breath, she looked at me and said something I will never forget. I used to draw stuff in his sandwiches too. I just stared at her, completely stunned. All those years, we were both, quietly, independently, doing the exact same thing, fighting back in the only safe way we could. And suddenly, it all made sense. It wasn't just about being petty. It wasn't just about revenge. It was survival. It was finding a way to cope, to reclaim even the tiniest piece of dignity in a situation where we had none. My dad never found out, not once. For years, he sat there eating those sandwiches, completely oblivious, still thinking he controlled everything, still believing the world bent to his expectations. But the truth, right there in his hands, every single day, was proof that he didn't. And for me, that was enough. Not some explosive confrontation, not a dramatic revenge scene. Just quiet, consistent defiance. A secret I got to keep. A reminder that even in the worst situations, you can still take something back. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's not about destruction or humiliation. Sometimes it's small, silent, almost ridiculous. But if it gives you back even a fraction of your power, then maybe it matters more than anything else. If you've ever had your own silent revenge moment, I want to hear it. Drop it in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with someone who appreciates a little perfectly petty justice. And remember, sometimes the sweetest revenge is the one they never even see coming.